Okay, we're reopening the open session of the April 2023 County Board meeting, and to report from our closed session, it was we were advised about a potential litigation manager issue and took no action. So there's nothing really to report from the board today. We have Dr. Sabah now on the remote connection again, the main one. So moving on. This is now the time for public comment. This would be an opportunity for anyone from the public to address the board on items not on today's agenda. And you have 3 minutes to talk if you wish to bring up something of interest to the board or of a concern of yours. Were you interested in talking about something not on the agenda?
No, my name is Travis Dion.
Cool. Okay, good. Welcome. Okay, seeing no public comment then, oh, do we have any online requests? No, okay. So we'll close public comment and it's now time for the consent agenda. And I do want to note a very generous donation from the Lady Triplet Foundation that supports some really wonderful things in our schools, and we're grateful for that. So do we ever get an answer on approving the minutes? We weren't expecting it necessarily today, but okay. So I'd like a motion on the consent agenda and Rose.
So I'd like to make a motion, and I'd like to abstain on the minutes since I was not present and we don't have a quorum, and suggest that we approve on the May meeting. And unless Nick can tell me in about 5 seconds that we don't have to do that, and he can't. So that's my suggestion.
Okay.
I abstain from the minutes, which would cause us not to have
So
for that item only.
trustees, is that okay that we have a motion on the consent agenda for everything except for the minutes from the March meeting? And we will bring those back at the next regular board meeting. Based on that,
You need a second.
oh yes.
Second.
Okay, so motion by Filicetti, second by Nichols. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So the minutes were not approved from March. Okay. And correspondence, do we have any correspondence not in the packet?
We did not get any additional correspondence. I do want to give a heads up that you will be receiving an email from Luann Rivera from CSBA tomorrow, asking you to complete a board self-evaluation and just some information on the meeting.
Okay, so we're on to reports, discussions, and presentations. And the first one is a report from Dr. Sabah on enrollment data, item 10.1. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much. And good afternoon, members of the board. I wanted to share with you that the California Department of Education recently updated their enrollment data. And they gave us a period for kind of where the data is embargoed and we're able to review it and then release it to the public. It currently is on the California Department of Education website, the DataQuest website. And that's where we're getting this information. If we could go to the next slide. You can go to DataQuest and run a variety of different reports. Usually it takes a while for the state to be able to update their database, but the data they're getting better and better at processing this information. And so it's great to already have 22-23 data, which is the school year data included. What I wanted to share with you today are the implications for countywide enrollment and some district trends that are taking place. I feel like this is something that is going to have a deep impact on us over time. We were expecting, based on some projections that were taking place about 3 years ago, the projections were that Santa Cruz County was going to lose about 5% of their student population over 10 years. We are currently losing an average of 2% per year, so a much higher rate. If you take a look at where we're at for enrollment this year, you'll see that we were kind of holding steady at 40,500 for quite some time. And then starting in 2018-19 and 2019-20, we began to drop, and we're currently at 38,000 students. Again, this represents approximately a 2.3% decrease from last year. What is interesting about this data is that most of the state is actually stabilizing. They didn't see as big a drop from last year to this year as we did. And we saw the biggest drop we've had in the last 5 years from last year to this year. And so in other words, Santa Cruz County is showing a larger drop in enrollment than the rest of the state. So it's not just the pandemic, it's not just, you know, the things that everybody else is experiencing. It's something specific to Santa Cruz and some other counties that are dealing with this. Now, if we take a look a little deeper to the breakdown by district in the next slide, you can see here there's a lot of numbers on the screen, and I apologize, I hope you're able to actually see it. But you'll see that you have a list of school districts, and then you have their enrollment in 2019-20, and then you have their enrollment in 2021, and there's a red number in between those to show you the percentage drop of these districts. So let's not worry so much about the smaller districts. Let's take a look at some of the larger districts. You'll see Live Oak, for example, with 1814 and 1920, they dropped to 1730, which was a 5% drop. And then they pretty much stayed steady into 21-22, where they got to 1728. And then they dropped to 1691, which was another 2% drop. So the change over 3 years was almost 7% for Live Oak School District. Okay. Let's take a look at the Pajaro Valley Unified School District. They started at 19,772. They dropped 3% to 19,276, another 3% to 18,675, and then a 3.8% this year to 17,963, a total of 9% drop over 3 years. Remember that we were anticipating 5% over 10 years. This is 10% over 3 years, a much more radical drop. Looking at San Lorenzo Valley, we see that they increased. Now they have a online charter that really impacts their numbers, but you basically see that they dropped from 2020-21 to 21-22 by about 2.9%, and then another 2.3%. And so that kind of balances out that 5%. Now, we should have combined the elementary and high school for Santa Cruz City because we think of them as one district, but officially they're two separate districts. But you'll notice that Santa Cruz City Elementary had a huge drop of 15%, and then an increase of 1.7%, and then an increase of 0.6%, so that their total number in elementary school is 12.8% drop over the last 3 years. And I want to give a shout out to Chris Monroe, because she has established what she is calling a 2030 committee with multiple different community partners, both from inside the district and parents in the community, to talk about the implications of these drops, of these declines in enrollment. Now, with the high school, you'll see that over the last 3 years, they've seen a 3.9% decrease. Remember that the Santa Cruz City Schools is basic aid at the elementary level and regular LCFF allocation at the high school level. For the COE, you'll see that we've experienced a 4.5% drop over the last 3 years. And from 1679 to 1605 to 1493, and then a big increase back to 1603. We anticipate that the increase is that trend is going to continue, because this is looking like a very, very positive year in attendance for us. So I expect it to kind of buck the trend somewhat and increase our percentage, our enrollment to even more. Scotts Valley, 2.7% over the last 3 years. And then Soquel Union Elementary School, 13.3% over the last 3 years. Countywide, we're looking at 6.2% over the last 3 years. Now, remember that our funding for most of these school districts is based on a 3-year window. And so as this 3-year window moves forward, these numbers dropping, think about the average. It's almost like that the column on the right tells you a little bit about what's going to happen to their budget, because that percentage is really how it's going to be averaged across 3 years. And they're really going to be impacted by 3 years. So that helps with big drops 1 year if you recover, but it doesn't help if you are constantly dropping. And so this fiscal cliff, for many of our districts, we anticipate that they're going to be having to make some very tough decisions for themselves in the near future because of this trend. Now, people are asking, of course, why? Why is this happening? Why in Santa Cruz more than anywhere else? And I think that all of us could probably have a very vigorous discussion about all the different variables that are impacting this. One of the main reasons is that families who have children in the district are leaving the area. And it's related to housing and the cost of living in this area and a variety of other factors that are affecting this, but the reality is that we are losing students at an alarming rate. I'm going to just do another slide, and then I'm going to open it up for questions and discussion. Looking at charter school enrollment, one of the questions is, where are some of the students leaving? So that now these charter schools, in many cases, are included in those counts. So this it's not like the charts before didn't include charter schools. Charter schools are public schools, and so students in those charts it's just that if you're authorized by if your PCS is under us, SEBA is under PVUSD, and so on. And so, but it does show you an increasing trend of parents choosing charter schools for their children, to the point where we have almost 20% of our students now enrolled in charter schools, and 80% of our students across the county enrolled in our traditional public schools. And so that
chart is just Santa Cruz County, excuse me, this chart is just Santa Cruz County?
That is correct.
Sorry, excuse me.
Yeah. And so the numbers of students who are enrolled in charter schools. Now, what we are seeing is that the charter schools are not short on students for the most part. And so they have so when the school district loses students, actually, let's say both charter schools and traditional schools lose students at this pace, more students are going in from the traditional schools into the charter schools to fill them back up. And so charter schools stay at their maximum, and that means that the public schools decrease at a faster level than if the charter schools weren't taking those students. And so that's kind of the trend, is that's why when we look at our charter schools, we say they don't seem to be short on enrollment. And it's because more the students are coming in from, so they're still serving the same number of students, but they're not seeing the losses that the school districts are seeing. And we anticipate that trend is going to continue as well. And so I wanted to bring this information to you, one, because I think that it's important for us to be thoughtful about what the implications are for our county. There's also a lot of context here when so there's some requirements that the government, that the state government has put in place, that to require, for example, what they call the housing element component, like the city of Watsonville, city of Santa Cruz. They have to be they have to be establishing low-income housing based on the regional housing needs plan. And that plan specifies with consequences if you don't follow, the number of low-income houses you have to have available in your county and in your jurisdiction, in your city. And that is going to force cities to provide a lot more low-income housing for families. And low-income housing generally means a higher percentage of students likely to be school-age students. And so we're hopeful that if low-income housing is made available in our community, that in fact this is going to help kind of counter some of these reductions. I think that, for example, the families in Pajaro, many of them living in shelters, they're more likely now to move away than to stay in this area because they're not able to return back to Pajaro because many of the landowners, for example, are choosing not to, clean up they're thinking of demolishing, rebuilding, and not making those rentals available to our families. So we think that the Pajaro situation and the number of students and families that are in shelters at this point is not going to get resolved, and it will mean increased declines for students in the Pajaro Valley Unified School District. So that's a quick overview of our enrollment situation and a little bit about housing. But I do believe that it's going to be, how long it takes to be able to build housing. We're probably going to continue to see these drops. And when you have schools that are with, let's say, when I look at our neighboring districts, their high schools have 3,000 students. Our high schools, some of them have 1,000 students. Their middle schools in other neighboring districts have 2,000 students. Our middle schools have 400 students. Their elementary schools have 1,000 students or 800 students. Our elementary schools in some cases have 250 students. That's not true for all of them, but you could look at using DataQuest, you can do your own searches and take a look at the enrollment for school by school based on a certain district. There is a certain point where having too few students at a school limits your abilities to be able to offer programming and services because you can't afford a full-time academic support person. You can't afford your school psychologist. You have these FTEs that are spread out all over the place. And so that's when we start talking about, well, it's time to consolidate schools, which means closing one school and bringing the schools, combining the student population into a single school. There's probably nothing more painful for school districts to do than that, which is to close down a school, a neighborhood school. And so nobody likes to talk about that. In fact, people in many cases lose their jobs. Superintendents lose their jobs for trying to make that happen in a lot of cases. And so it is something that is a tough conversation to have with the community. And in many cases, they appreciate the smaller school. They think it's a good thing, but there is a point where the finances no longer can carry such a small program, and it can impact students as well, and that the services end up being limited. Having a very small high school means you have less offerings, you have less flexibility, you have less. Your scheduling in a master's scheduling becomes extremely difficult. For example, you can't offer as many AP classes. You can't offer, so those are the kinds of things that end up the kinds of tough decisions that can impact students. So I did want to bring this to your attention. We've been talking about this among the superintendents. Each school district is looking at their numbers carefully, looking at what the implications are for funding, what are the implications for school closures in the future, although nobody is talking about that at this point. And also looking at the context, what is happening in the housing environment that could in fact could counter some of this negative trends that we're seeing. And I'll open up for questions at this point.
Thank you. Trustees, questions? Rose.
Eris, correct me if I'm wrong. You led, I thought, a very courageous, united front with all of the districts in terms of setting COVID policy. And some of our smalls and some of our chambers have a little more aggressive policy instead of in terms of letting kids return to schools or masking or anything. I know we tried to be very consistent.
So you're asking me about the approach when it comes to masking and as COVID protocols?
Well, yeah, and returning to school and that type of thing. If you look very quickly at the data, the littles and the charters did okay versus some of our other schools. And I just want to make sure that there was consistent COVID policy. I know we have no control over the non-public schools and what they did.
Right, right. Yeah, no, I don't think, we're not seeing a trend that would link that. And most of the school districts all were pretty unified in their approach. I think there's been some flexibility or, some less rule following under some districts and others, but there's nothing that would suggest that this is related to COVID protocols at this point. And in fact, private schools are struggling as well. Not all of them, but they're sharing with us that they are losing students as well. So we're not seeing a trend where the students are leaving the public schools and going to private schools. We saw that during the pandemic, but most of them, right after we reopened public schools, most of the private schools lost the student increases that they saw. So we're not seeing a increase in private schools being as an enrollment option for families.
Okay, and then my other question, of course, the huge elephant in the room is housing. People are going to continue to move out of the county. It's going to be a graying of the county in terms of who can afford to live here. I'm just not seeing maybe in Santa Cruz, but I'm just not seeing any huge housing. Are you, Bruce, seeing any huge housing projects?
Well, if it's relying on the market, it's not going to be affordable. I mean, that's the problem, is there's not enough subsidy money really to do anything serious about affordability. The market is going to maybe in 2 generations lead to some more affordable units, but it's not going to yield it right away. I mean, that's my opinion.
That to me is the elephant. I mean, how do we provide an excellent education that we know we can if we don't have seats in kids in the seats? It's a real struggle for a family.
The housing element piece, I think, is something important to follow. And so this, for example, the city of Watsonville made a commitment to build 2,000 homes, units over the next 8 years, right? And so part of this is because there is now requirements that if schools, cities don't follow the requirements of the government code, they will be consequences. They'll be fined. And so you're going to be seeing a lot more construction over the next 8 to 10 years across the county.
Okay, that's a generation.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's going to take us a long time to build those homes, and by then, our school districts are going to look very different than they do right now.
Well, and I particularly look at Santa Cruz County in terms of both fires and floods, which are extreme circumstances. And I could be wrong, but the last time I heard, there were like 800 homes that needed to be built in the Bonnie Doon area, and they'd only approved like 80 permits. I mean, at that pace, that's 3 years ago.
Yeah. 1,000 homes were destroyed and only 80 have been approved for reconstruction.
Yeah, I mean, at that pace, you'd probably move away. You wouldn't wait for. Anyway, I don't want to take any more of your time. I'm just being sad.
It's a sad situation. Other comments, trustees, or questions on the data? Sue.
I know that the church with the blue door downtown, I don't think that church is.
I can't hear Sandra.
Wait a second. Now, do you hear me? Yeah, there's I believe it's a housing project for low-income families, and they built that on the church parking lot. So they had the land, and there's a 5-story building that's nearing completion. I thought that was a remarkable thing for the church to do, but I don't know how that'll work for them on when the parking gets bad. But did we talk about at one time building units for teachers that could live on some of the.
There are movements for that, and I think Santa Cruz has been looking at it. Santa Cruz City.
Yeah,
it's been looking at it,
ongoing.
Yeah, at this point, Santa Cruz, because they passed the bond, they're the only ones that seem to really be in the game to be able to build some teacher housing. It may not help us with our enrollment numbers, but it'll help us keep teachers here, which is another challenge that we're facing.
Anything else on the data? I have one question. I think Sue, you had a question? Or comment?
I've got several. On low-cost housing, I understand there's no state funding coming in on that. It's the cities or whatever's having to ask the builders to build at a lesser cost. Is that still true?
Mostly, yeah. There is some talk about more state funding coming down, but it's got to be a voter approved bond, I think.
How is Santa Clara County faring on their numbers overall, not individual districts? Are they close to what we're showing on enrollment?
Generally speaking, I would say that they've lost student enrollment, but I'd have to check to see if they're leveling out like most of the state of California, or if they are continuing to drop like we are. But I don't have those numbers. I can compare a few additional counties and send them to you so you can do a cross-county comparison.
Because I think they face the same kind of housing costs that we do.
They do, but they haven't had the floods or the fires.
Well, that's true. Let's see. Could you send that enrollment, that what is up on the screen? Could we have a copy of that?
Absolutely, yeah. We'll share the slide deck with you, so you'll have all the data from this one, and I'm going to have more data in my superintendent's report, so you'll have all that information included, and we'll have Berenice forward that to you.
I just emailed the slides to you.
Okay,
Or
that's
to
great.
everybody.
That's great information. And I will report later, but at our SCSBA meeting, Santa Cruz School Boards Association, County School Boards Association, housing and enrollment were two of the most discussed items. And I don't want to forget this, but with Bonnie Doon, and I noticed their enrollment has really changed. And this has been over the past few meetings. There has been overall discussion of they are so inundated with reports that need to go out, and they have a principal superintendent who can't, I mean, he's doing it all, and they are attempting to do what Santa Cruz with the 2030 plan, he doesn't, they've had this on their agenda for 2 years to do it, and they haven't the time or the personnel to do it. And I just thought that might be very important for you to know, Ferris. I think you probably already know it, but maybe
Yeah.
help them.
Yeah, one thing to note about Bonnie Doon is that they're a basic aid district, which means it really doesn't matter how much enrollment they have. It's not based on per student. It's based on how much tax revenue is collected in their district. And so it doesn't have any effect on them having less students, because they make more than their allocation under the local control funding formula through tax revenue. They get to keep that extra tax revenue. So they are actually per pupil get maybe a significant dollar amount more than these other the other districts, and so they're actually not impacted by this for themselves. Now, the big drop, part of that is because students have moved out of the area because they no longer are able to live there. Now, if the tax revenue, in fact, drops below, because people are not living in those in that properties, and the value of the land has in fact gone down because the houses haven't been rebuilt, they could eventually drop below the basic aid and rely on that, and then they would be in a much more difficult situation. This is also true for, I believe, Mountain Elementary. They're also basic aid district. And so, and there are 4 small schools, and I think I do believe that they all struggle with their responsibilities in terms of having to do everything. So they work very hard, and we provide a lot of support for them as well. They see us as their district office, so we provide a lot of services to them.
The other thing that with Bonnie Doon is they have been without power, without roads, and so their ADA is going to be affected, correct? Or is basic aid, they just get the amount whether they have the students in their seats or in?
As long as they stay above I believe that as long as they stay above their basic aid, their allocation could be affected actually with ADA, so that could have an effect on them. But so yeah, that is something that they do have to worry about. And yeah, they have been impacted pretty significantly by the storms. You're absolutely right.
And with Mountain, their problem is that they're affected by the loss of electricity, and their water system is on a pump.
Yeah, at a future meeting, I would like to give you an update on some of the emergency steps that we're taking. We are asking all the smalls to think about how they can make themselves more robust and have redundant systems for electricity, which would include a small small generator. But it does require some changes to switch over for a couple of them. A couple of them already have those electrical switches in place that would allow you to just plug in a generator. And so we are looking for a grant to help them secure generators for their sites. And so we anticipate that we're going to continue to see, these climate-related incidents and we want them to be as self-sufficient as possible and not close down schools.
Good. Thank you, Paris.
Thanks, Sue. Rose?
I just wanted to add, Ferris, and I'm sure you know this. So I was with a school district that was in and out of basic aid constantly. And that frankly is the absolute worst place to be, because it's very difficult to do any planning because you have the money and then you don't have the money. And, so anybody who's on the cusp really needs to be careful.
I had one comment on the numbers still in the chart up there, which is that it appears to me that where the real big declines are is in the youngest levels. It's the elementary schools, and even, the difference between Santa Cruz High and Santa Cruz Elementary is pretty stark. And the other ones with the big drops were elementary. So that's maybe the leading edge of the demographic change is the families with the youngest is what it looks like to me. I'm going to go online to DataQuest and dig a bit more to see if that's true. Okay.
I have one more thing. And it comes from our subcommittee meeting with PCS. And they too have had a drop, but it's a drop in their lottery versus
Right.
concerned because it's at least what they indicated was 5 years.
Yeah. And if I could add just one more piece of information that's important. So we did see a higher enrollment number with our kindergartners, which is promising. So if that trend continues, there could be a reversal of this. But the other piece here is this is enrollment. So if you show up to school, you register, you start going to school, it doesn't talk about ADA as I think Sue mentioned, or was it Rose?
Sue.
It was Sue, as Sue mentioned. And so even if you have, let's say in the current year, your SoCal Elementary, you've just gotten another 2% decrease and you have 1654. If your attendance is not at 96%, it's at 90% or 88%. The double impact of the 2% drop of enrollment and then another, let's say 8% drop in ADA is a double whammy that really hurts. And so the way that our numbers work is that the schools send a report called a P2 report, which is sent around now that really is looks at the ADA, the attendance of students who are enrolled for the year, and that's how they provide your allocation for the next year. And so this does not show that our truancy with 2/3 of the students I'm sorry, 1/3 of our students. Oh, I'm not going to say it because I'm going to get it wrong, but a lot of our students have missed over 10% of their schooling, meaning they've missed a month of school. And so that impacts them academically, it impacts them social emotionally, and it impacts the schools financially. So a lot of compounding factors here that are resulting in some challenges that we need to figure out and face and address.
President Van Allen, before we move on, I wanted to quickly answer Trustee Roth's question of several minutes ago. We were able to confirm that Santa Clara County is down 2%, just above 2% year over year, compared to our 2.3% and the statewide average of much lower at 0.6.7.
They are.
So you were correct. Okay.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you, Ferris, for that report, and trustees for the in-depth questioning. The next item is under new business 11.1. This is our review of our effective governance handbook, and the idea of this is not so much to dig into it today, but that I wanted it here so that you would have it and be reminded of it for our May 20th retreat. What we're going to do at that retreat, there are a few steps coming. One of them Bernice mentioned earlier, which is that our consultant, Luan, is going to be contacting all board members very soon and asking each of us to participate with her in a, I forget what she's calling it, a survey or a kind of a question, get a sense of us. And that will be some of her background material to take. It's a self-evaluation of each of us. Yes. Yeah, she's going to contact each of us separately.
She will be sending the surveys and then also scheduling a time to speak over the phone.
Yes, yeah, which she did last year too. I recall. We will have a couple tasks that we sort of have assigned to ourselves for that retreat. From the work we did last year, we have an almost complete board governance package, but we have a few outstanding questions which Luann identified for us, and that will be what we attempt to work on in the retreat, along with, sharing our overall perspectives and everything else. So at this point, we don't really need action on this. Any questions or comments? Rose.
Eris, you'll appreciate this. I know how damn hard people worked on creating this document. It's a lot more policy than application, which I tend to think of our handbook as being more of an application of policy. But I don't want us to forget, and this is with all due respect to Luann. Luann works for CSBA. She does not work for CCBE. It's not clear to me that she totally understands the difference. And I would ask those of you who are on district boards, if you feel that way, I feel that way. I just think we need to be very mindful as we create our working document of how we operate, that county boards are different. They're not district boards, and the way we do things is just different.
Did we get the CCBE?
I have two.
Yes.
Bruce, if you didn't get one, I can give you.
I think I did.
Yeah, no.
And I will say, it's more of a broad policy statement. It was very necessary. If you ever saw the one that preceded this, it was literally a collection of pieces of paper.
Oh.
So I commend Joe Roth, and Abel was part of this. I commend Joe Roth for creating a book that, of course, is out of date the next day. But at least there's a collective thought process about what it means to be a county board member. And I would encourage everybody to read through this before you think about the application of how we do things. That's my 2 cents, Ferris, because we got the damn book finally.
Good, thank you.
What I did was collect what I could of the handbooks that have been established in our local school districts.
So not-
SoCal and Santa Cruz City and Scotts Valley. I agree with you, Rose, but in the protocols, which is in the handbook, I think there are areas which we need to expand on. I think we have 2 or 3, and I've started listing them. I won't go over them here. We'll do that. That I think should, if the whole board decides, should be addressed, but it's something that is consistent with any board meeting of a school district, not just county or district. So,
Thanks for doing that.
Mhm.
Yeah. Are you going to give us copies of those, or what was your idea?
I could.
Maybe send them digitally to.
Yeah,
Yes.
they're on their websites. And those are the 3 that I could find.
Was Santa Cruz, Scotts Valley, and SoCal Union.
Yeah.
Thanks. Okay, trustees, next we have a set of resolutions, a lot of which have to do with the month of May or dates in the month of May, honoring various things. Our committee didn't have time to really deeply dig into these, but we had great staff support for composing them. I did go over them pretty carefully and found only one minor little change in one of them. And so I want to ask how the board, should we just go through them one by one and do them? I do have a few remarks of my own about some of them. So we'll just go through and consider. So the first one is 11.2, approval of resolution 23-11, recognizing Jewish American Heritage Month. And what I want to say about this, and I'll invite other trustees to comment as well if they want, is that I was born right after World War II. And World War II was in many ways fought over anti-Semitism and the attacks on Jewish people. And as a kid growing up in the 50s, there was this very strong kind of part of the atmosphere of, wow, we just got through something really big and really horrible, World War II and the Holocaust. And when I was a kid, the news about the Holocaust was coming out more and more through the 50s, when it wasn't all known right away. And in my experience in school, leave aside the question of religion in the schools, we spun the dreidel, we had Christmas decorations, everybody got their religion acknowledged. And that was in a nice part of LA, or at least it was the LA school system in the 50s and the 60s. And I grew up at first, naive white kid, thinking that the world had defeated anti-Semitism in World War II. And it's been to my utter dismay and horror and disappointment in all of us that today anti-Semitism is on the rise again, that it has never really gone away. And so I encourage our board to pass this resolution with a lot of feeling, because this is a really serious question for a lot of us, and I am not standing down from myself. So that's what I wanted to say about this. I'm not going to make a speech about every resolution.
I agree with you, Bruce. And I've seen it up at UCSC. And I was late to the table, grew up the same time you did, but when I finally heard about what happened in Germany and the whole slaughter, I went home and just screamed at my parents. Now my dad was fighting in the Pacific, but why didn't America do something? But it was belated by maybe 15 years for there to be this kind of understanding. So, yep.
Okay. And that's a good introduction to this particular resolution. And I wanted to thank Nick and Bernice for being so dedicated to send us these resolutions, which we didn't have to change at all. But I did highlight a few sections, and what I was going to say is America did something during World War II, which was and it's written in here, and it makes me ashamed to be an American to think that this happened during this the lead up to the Holocaust, and that in 1942 this ship came over full of Jewish refugees fleeing the war-torn countries that they were in, and the horrible stuff that was going on there, and it was admission of the passengers was denied, and they were turned back. I just am so I'm so mad at my country for having done such a thing, and it's similar to the current immigration from Central America, and how some of the people are being sent back. I just think it doesn't live up to our ideals. It just doesn't. And I'd like to see us pass this resolution with a feeling of we can be better.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'll make a motion.
Can I make a comment first?
Yes, I see.
First,
you.
I absolutely want to second your call for us to work to end anti-Semitism, and so appreciative of you calling it out, of what's happening today, because this is, we recently had the Holocaust Day of Remembrance, and I think that it would be more, we would be able to rejoice if we could say that we have made progress, significant progress, so that we would never see this again, but we continue to see it to this day. So I really thank you for bringing that up, and I really appreciate that you are bringing this resolution forward. I would like to make a recommendation to eliminate the 350-year history line, just because that takes us back to the arrival of the Europeans to the continent, and I don't see why that's necessary here. And so I think replacing that introduction for that whereas with our history, I think would be more inclusive and not tie this resolution to the arrival of Europeans to this continent. Not to this continent, but to what later became the United States.
So this is the whereas clause. It's about
It's right in the middle.
sixth one, whereas the more than 350-year history. So the superintendent is suggesting that we change that to something like whereas American history, or in through American history, through our history. How about our history? Through our history. Through our.
Is he talking about that, or is he talking about people coming?
I think he was talking about the one with the 350.
350.
350 is the key. So whereas history has given us names like Albert Einstein and Ruth Bader Ginsburg, just say whereas history. Does that work?
Mm-hmm.
Are you seeing that, Rose? Or,
Yeah, I see it. I just don't understand how that changes.
Well, my guess is the 350-year, the naming that number of years pegs us to the colonial period. And what I'm getting from Ferris is maybe not wanting to tie it simply to that arrival of the colonists in the Western Hemisphere. Is that right? Am I understanding you?
Wasn't it saying in 1654? The paragraph above it?
Hello.
Well, that I took that as more relating to a particular arrival, a date of arrival, as opposed to an era or something like that.
I'm not understanding.
Ferris, did you have a clause in mind that gets at exactly what you were your concern?
So I'm just looking at, so the following one talks about 1654, the first Jews arrived, I guess, so I guess that's what it's tied to. So I misunderstood that. Searching for better opportunities. Well, if it wouldn't inconvenience the board too much, maybe just swapping those two whereases, and that would make it clear what the 350 years is related to, and that would resolve my concern.
That's fine with me. Does that make sense to the board?
Yes, it
Move
does.
the one that mentions 1654 above the one that
Yes.
says 350 years.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Then it doesn't create any confusion about what the 350-year history.
Is that clear, Fairness?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Thank you. Thank you for entertaining that.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I didn't see your hand on the tiny little screen that we're seeing.
Couldn't even see this
And I'm
thing.
sorry.
I don't think we. who made
I'll
that?
second.
I just want to make one comment. And this is totally current. I wasn't present last meeting where we approved the board calendar. And I know it's been a continuing concern in the Jewish community that we often schedule things in the middle of important Jewish holidays. Did we do our very best to not do that?
I do remember when you brought that up. I haven't.
Yeah, a year ago I brought that up. Because I've been approached by people saying, you realize you're scheduling that prom during our equivalent of Christmas or whatever it is. I will tell you somebody who did not grow up in a community. I grew up in a farm community where there were very few Jewish people and almost no Asian people, that I was not exposed to any of this until I went to college. And what an eye-opening experience that was, and a much more concern for being respectful of people's celebration of their holidays.
So just to clarify, Trustee Felicetti, that what was approved is just a calendar of the school year. It doesn't, it doesn't include all of the events that take place, which is generally where the greatest concern has been.
Right.
Was like proms and
Right.
events. So that wasn't discussed or at the last meeting.
That is
But I'll be sure to remind our folks to take into consideration important religious and cultural events to make sure that we're being as inclusive as possible. I appreciate the reminder.
absolutely right, Ferris. I didn't think about that. That was just our school calendar. But
Right.
thank you very much for reminding everybody to have that top of mind when they do schedule.
Thank you.
Trustee Felicetti, also, just as a reminder, we did recently, the COE did work with religious leaders in the community, faith leaders, to create a document to attempt to solve this problem, the religious holiday reference and guide, which we have consulted as we make these academic calendars too.
Great, good, thank you.
That's very respectful. Thank you.
Good. Okay, who made the motion? Were you?
I did.
Okay, so motion by Nichols, second by Roth, with the amendment of the order of those two clauses. Resolution 23-11, and I'd like a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Felicetti,
Aye.
trustee Nichols,
Yes,
trustee Roth,
Yes.
President Van Allen.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously among those present. Okay, the next resolution is for flying the rainbow flag and honoring Harvey Milk Day, which is coming up in May. And my motivation for this is that everybody's sexual freedom is my sexual freedom. And without everybody else having it, I don't have it. So we fly the flag in solidarity, if nothing else. Comments or motions? Rose.
So my motivation for this is that I have a gay daughter. I have a husband who's married, and I have a husband who works for the Diversity Center. And every year when I go to Quila, I listen to John Laird talk about how he's absolutely amazed and thrilled about the changes that have been made, particularly in this county, to accept LGBTQ kids across the board, and in fact, to celebrate them as leaders. And as I'll just make the personal comment that as we see what is the absolute victimization of trans children across the country, I'm very proud that we're taking a different point and in fact have gender affirming surgery available to children and families once they make that decision. It's just it.
Agreed. Comments or motions?
Oh, I have another comment. So, I found the now therefore be it resolved clause at the bottom of the page to really sum it up what this is about. The Santa Cruz County Office of Education celebrates Harvey Milk Day and invites all educational institutions, organizations, companies, and individuals across Santa Cruz to fly the rainbow flag from May 8th to the 12th, 2023, in honor of Harvey Milk Day, and encourages teachers to teach lessons about LGBTQ plus history during this week in their classrooms aligned with state history framework. And besides that wording of the cause of being inclusive of all kinds of sexual orientations. And I think there's probably going to be a rainbow flag raising here at the COE. And I attended that last year, and other trustees might show up there also, because somebody in the audience, I forget his name, but he's associated with the COE. I think he's an employee. And he said he really appreciates it when trustees show up at this event that is so meaningful to him. And I would be glad to represent the board at this event again, and to invite you all to join us. It's kind of a good celebration.
That'll probably be in Pride Month in June.
Well, I have a feeling it's going to be on May 8th. I put it on my calendar because that's the first day of Harvey Milk. That's the first in honor of. Well, it's
Do we know?
Monday,
Is there a plan
yeah.
for that? Oh,
And well, when they initially raise the flag, that would be on Monday, the 8th.
Bernice has information.
Yes, trustees, we are encouraging school districts to raise their flag that week. Here at the COE, we will be raising our flag on Tuesday, May 9th at 10 a.m.
Is that for the first time the flag will be raised on Tuesday?
Yes, on Tuesday
And what time? 9?
at 10 a.m.
10 a.m? Oh, maybe that's too early for me. No, just a joke, just a joke.
Here, I'll come and pick you up.
And I'll send an email out as it gets closer as a reminder. I'll also send the dates once I get for other school districts.
Thank you.
Thanks.
If I could also add that, my wife recently left Salinas Union High School District, but last year was the first year that they raised the flag at Salinas Union High School District. And this was the first, I think it was the only school district that had the pride flag raised. And this is Monterey County next door. And so that was a big accomplishment for them, but we had virtually every school in the county raising their flag here in Santa Cruz County. So we are definitely standing in support of our LGBTQ community here in Santa Cruz.
As we should. Sue.
I'd just like to say I did a little search on Harvey Mill, and I remember it happening, but I didn't realize it was in 1978. And both the George Moscone and Harvey Milk were both killed. And Diane Feinstein was the president of the Board of Supervisors. And anyway, there was quite a shift occurred at that time. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say is it really was quite a moment in history.
Motion and
I'll make a motion to
I'll
approve
second.
this resolution.
motion by Nichols, second by Felicetti. Roll call vote, please, on resolution 23-12.
Trustee Felicetti,
Aye.
trustee Nichols,
Yes,
trustee Roth,
Yes.
President Van Allen.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously among those present. The next one is a really sweet one in support of Day of the Teacher. And I don't have anything really major to say except that I just love teachers, and they I think I once said this before. They rank right up there with librarians and other people that are just basically there to serve, and they do such wonderful work. And I really appreciate them for that. So, comments, questions?
a
motions?
few words from the resolution that I feel really sums up my feelings for teachers too. Teaching is a profession that requires skill, determination, patience, and energy. And I think we should show our support of. I don't know whether this coincides with the annual picnic, but I was thinking that at the annual picnic, somebody from the board should represent us and say a few words about our appreciation. And they could use this resolution to find some good words of recognizing the work of the teachers and how important that is.
That's on May 10th, and I expect to be there.
I'll be there too.
May 10th.
We got to do the classified
Yeah.
employees too.
May
Definitely.
10th from 1 to 5. That is a long picnic.
You can drop in whenever you'd like.
Yes.
Good. Rose?
So every year we do this, and we always do platitudes, and then we thank the classified staff. I think we really need to take a moment and think about the impact of COVID on teachers in particular and staff in general. What a hit it took to their numbers, what it's done to their own mental health. And I'll just make the statement, I marvel, and not in a good way, that when parents were home with their own children and claiming that they were doing the education, when indeed their children were trying to converse back and forth to their teachers over Zoom, that they ought to be worshiping their teachers' feet when the kids return to the classroom, because they returned with a lot of behavioral issues. And so the teachers not only probably feared for their own health and all those types of things, but they had the kids back. They were thrilled to have them, but they did have to deal with a lot of behavioral issues. So parents, get your whatever together and be more appreciative of the teachers that care for your children every single day.
I did hear some state legislation by somebody that wants to raise teacher salary by 50%.
I saw that too.
That's a hopeful,
Were they a teacher?
it was a legislator. State
No, I
legislator.
know. Were they?
Oh, had they been? I don't know. That's a good question. Yeah. Sue,
I think that we should also be aware of the loss that's occurring with the teachers. I see it all the time, people leaving and going into other areas of work. And that we as a board and parents too should push for better benefits, salary, etc. Give better pathways, or make it easier for a teacher to get their education, and including helping pay so that they don't come out with a huge loan amount. And we must make it a real priority, not just here in our county, but the state and the United States, because it's dangerous for us to be losing people. And I'm just hopeful that it's going to turn around and we're going to get the young people encouraged to do that, but it's not going to happen by itself. They need more support, money, and appreciation.
Can I take that as you making the motion?
Sure, sure.
Okay.
Being a minor bird.
Thank you. Motion by Roth, second by Filicetti. This is to adopt resolution 23-13 in support of Day of the Teacher. And can I get a roll call, please?
Trustee Felicetti,
Aye.
trustee Nichols,
Yes,
trustee Roth,
Yes.
President Van Allen.
Aye, motion carries unanimously of all present. Next, we come to support of Classified Employees Week. And the one thing I was going to say about both the teachers and classified employees is that this touches back on something we were discussing a few minutes ago, which is that we need teachers and all the different kinds of workers who work in our schools. We're losing them, as we were just discussing, and our kids need them because of all the challenges that kids are facing these days. And what better county in the entire state of California to embark on a career, maybe a second or a third career as a teacher? This county is the place to do it, to step up to the challenge that all the kids everywhere need, but in our county, because we are relatively progressive and enlightened, and I don't mean politically, but I mean, we care about our students and our families a lot, that this is the place. If somebody is going to consider that, of course, we need the higher pay and everything else, but this would be the ideal county to become a teacher.
yeah, well, I'll add to that, that when I started out with my work as a teacher of speech and language.
And I mean to include classified employees in that too, because of the service.
We're
that
getting
they-
to that. We're getting to that next.
Oh, that's the one we're on now.
Oh, we're talking about that now?
Yeah.
Okay.
I
I'll
wanted to
change
apply what
my
I'm
message
saying.
then. I like the nice list that discusses what kind of work the classified employees do at Santa Cruz County Office of Education. They support and enhance the educational process by assisting teachers, transporting students, preparing meals, maintaining buildings and grounds, and performing all technical, business, clerical, and administrative secretarial functions. That's a wide range of duties, and I'm sure some of them do some of those things, and surely none of them do all of those things, maybe. And as a teacher, you grow to appreciate the people who are not teachers in the school, but are also part of the mission of educating the children.
Absolutely.
I would have done it for no pay. I would have done that work for the first year with no pay. And I would have been gloating that I got to do that work.
All right. Other comments or motions, please?
I'll make the motion.
And Rose seconded, I think already, did you? No,
This one.
okay, I'll
That's why-
second then.
Okay, motion by Ross, second by Nichols for resolution 23-14 in support of Classified Employees Week. Roll call, please.
Trustee Felicetti,
Aye.
trustee Nichols,
Yes,
trustee Roth,
Yes.
President Van Allen.
Motion carries unanimously while present. 11.6, approval of resolution 23-15, recognizing May as Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And my comment on that is that surf culture got its start in North America here in Santa Cruz when some royalty from Hawaii, the formerly sovereign country of Hawaii, came here to visit. And that's a minor thing, but it's part of the history that we all share. And I'm really glad that we're taking this time to do this resolution. Rose.
And I'll do the flip side. I appreciate that we're acknowledging the absolute racism that was expressed towards the Chinese and the Filipinos in our county's history, and that we're noting that, and we know there's issues countrywide now, and that we're making a statement.
Incidentally, the former county board member Dana Sales was the one who made sure, I asked him about it, and he said, will you mention the Filipino attack in Pajaro Valley? And so that's how that got in here last year.
And when I had been reading some book or something about the different kinds of discrimination that go on in schools and in the community, and that the Asian Americans are considered the model minority because of the way they take to the educational system and get something out of it. You know, they're usually very good students, and they usually do very well in school because they have a family that supports getting a good education and does things that help the students succeed. So I had been kind of sold a bill of goods that's the model minority, and there's a paragraph in here which explains that. It says schools must help dispel the model minority myth, a stereotype that the Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders communities are a monolithic group with uniform endowments and achievements, a way of thinking that erases the economic, academic, and social struggles of diverse communities and can add to the burden and social emotional toll that Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, those students often bear. Whoever wrote that, I give you a hand. It was one of those two, or maybe you found it on another person's work. I don't know, but that's a good paragraph. It's really full of, it kind of shook my cage because I thought they were the model minority.
I have to say, Sandra, I was growing a little concerned when you started talking that you were actually reproducing the model minority concept. So I'm glad you finished that with the way you did. Rose, motion by Filicetti. Did you have a comment? No. Did you have a comment?
No, I was gonna make a motion.
Okay. Motion by Filicetti,
I'll
second by Roth.
And I want to say that I had the opportunity to go to the Camp Manzanar in November. Was driving down 395 and actually went in and then proceeded to do a little bit more study about it, and about it wasn't the only Japanese concentration camp. But yes, America has it's too inflammatory with the state of America at this point in time.
The Cow Palace?
The Cow Palace. No. In terms of a staging area, of course, all the farms around here.
Manzanar was out in nowhere.
Oh, I know it's cool.
Yeah. And they developed a community.
Succeeded.
I went there because our family was on a vacation trip to the High Sierra, and we went up the east side, and then we stopped there because my parents wanted me and my brothers to know. Okay.
I didn't know that it was in California.
Yeah.
I thought it was a faraway place, but
Well, I'm
it's
just
far,
far
far.
place.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay,
So we have a motion and a second, right?
I'll make the motion to,
No, I think.
We have a motion by trustee Filicetti and a second by trustee Roth.
For resolution 23-15, recognizing May as Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Roll call, please.
Trustee Filicetti,
Aye.
trustee Nichols,
yes,
trustee Roth,
Yes.
President Van Allen.
Aye, motion carries unanimously of all present. Trustees, next we have 11.7, resolution 23-16, recognizing Mental Health Awareness Month. A topic we've already touched today more than once. I think think this is important that we do this, and I will note a trend in our country of a greater acknowledgement, at least in some sectors, of that mental health is something that everybody gets to have their issues with or have their problems with and share them, and that it's okay, and kids as well as adults. And
Yes, but,
yeah, there's definitely a but there. Yeah.
you know, it also somehow we have this similar mental health problems to the entire world. And we have more gun deaths that are often blamed on mental health. So we don't get off scot-free. I am glad that we are recognizing mental health as a health issue.
Yeah.
But I just want to make the comment, I unfairly asked Ferris at the last minute if he could give us some local numbers. And Ferris, especially since you're not present that you couldn't do that. So if you would just provide those numbers to us by email or at a future meeting or whatever, I'd appreciate it.
And this is statistics on local
On
mental
local
health.
mental health and
I
what
mean,
we're-
specifically in terms of students, or
Yeah, because this speaks more globally about mental health.
it's a good thought.
I'd like to say something about the details in here, because this is, these are very dramatic examples of when mental health interrupts students' lives. Here's one. The average age of early signs of mental illness is 14 when most students are entering high school. And the other one that really affects, has an emotional effect on me, is that the CDC has declared suicide as the second leading cause of death among youth ages 15 to 19. That's, to me, it just hits me.
Yep.
The number of children ages 6 to 12 who visited Children's Hospital for suicidal thoughts or self-harm has more than doubled since 2016. We learn things in these resolutions. Yeah.
I heard yesterday that a report, I think it was in the New York Times, that African-American or Black students, Black youth are experiencing a much higher rate of suicide attempts and suicidal ideation than actually Black and Latino, higher than the rest of the population. Other comments or a motion?
It touches all classes, all ages, all genders. Some particularly more because they're put in positions of stress. But those who think that it doesn't happen to rich people or smart people or some particular group of people, it touches everyone. And it is a very human condition that we are still not very comfortable talking about. We would never dismiss somebody who came and said they had a health issue of some type, stomach issue, leg issue, whatever. But somehow when they say they're having a brain issue, we all kind of recoil, and we've got to learn that kindness.
There was one word in this resolution that I almost asked to be changed, and it sort of speaks to what you just said, which is that at the end, in where the therefore be it resolved, it says the Santa Cruz County Board of Education proudly proclaims the month of May as Mental Health Awareness Month. And proudly kind of hit me wrong. What I take the intent of the writing is that it's in the sense of not ashamedly or not reluctantly or quietly, but hey, we do recognize and celebrate mental health awareness. But there's a side of the term proud that kind of hits me a little bit off there, but I couldn't think of a good substitution, so I accepted our skilled authorship. So
I would also like to point out that the drug problems that we're experiencing across the nation relate directly to mental illness, also in that a lot of them are self-medicating, and anyway, it kind of goes hand in hand. Yep,
Yeah.
addiction.
And sadly, gun deaths by suicide.
Could and I'm sorry, I didn't, I should have reviewed these earlier, but the third bullet discusses things that kind of go beyond, I mean, obviously they're related to mental health and can cause issues of mental health, but it talks about police violence against African Americans and hate crimes against anti-Asian hate crimes. And then it talks about Latino deaths in the COVID-19 communities. And I feel it may not totally fit here as in that these are very specific items that are true, and yet there's also lots of other things that are occurring that cause trauma that are not mentioned, and so I'm not sure if this is needed in this statement, and I'll just put it at that. Because I think we just did a resolution specifically for Asian Americans. We've done resolutions for African Americans. We've, I don't know if done a resolution, but we're addressing the inequities of COVID-19 deaths, although Santa Cruz has done much better in terms of equity in that area than most other areas. So I'm just not sure if you feel it necessary to be part of Mental Health Awareness Month.
Do you have a comment?
Yeah, do we know where the paragraph came from? Was it in last year's?
I believe it was in the same one as last year.
I actually, when I read it, I thought, good, I'm glad they're mentioning these factors that are affecting the mental health or stressing the mental health of students. It is quite specific, as Dr. Sabah points out, in terms of some specific types of stress. What if it were to say such as in there? Does that help any in terms of what you were kind of raising, Dr. Sabah?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, because the spike in anti-Asian hate, there's also been a spike in anti-Semitic and anti-Jewish hate crimes. There's been, and so yeah, whatever you're comfortable with, I think is fine.
I could say overdue societal reckoning with police violence, hate crimes, and significantly higher than average death rates tied to COVID-19, and not mention African Americans, Asian Americans, and the Latino communities.
That's probably a better edit.
I think that sounds appropriate to me.
Okay, so let me try to read that back again. Whereas children and families are dealing with the long overdue societal reckoning with police violence, hate crimes, and significant higher than average death rates linked to COVID-19.
Yeah, again, I'm thinking gun violence could be added, but then if you start down this road, we're going to get to, a length here. I'm going to ask Nick what his thinking is on this one, just because he works on these quite a lot.
So in this case, I believe this language is the same from last year and is not something that I personally contributed or identified. So I certainly understand the point that Superintendent Sabah is making. And I think the resolution would certainly be intact without this whereas altogether, or with an approach such as the one that President Van Allen has suggested.
First, trustees.
I like yours, but I agree with Ferris. I could just start tacking all kinds of situations onto it. Could be a 4-paragraph paragraph.
Yeah. Any other thoughts?
The words that you struck were from against African Americans, a spike in anti-Asian. You struck those.
I struck the references to particular communities.
Okay, I think a comma should be added after the word violence, because otherwise it sounds like reckoning with police violence, hate crimes, and significantly higher. It's a list actually of
Factors.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was assuming a comma.
So I'll make the motion with those amendments.
okay.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Motion by Phil Setti, second by Nichols. No further discussion, then I'll roll call vote. This is resolution 23-16, recognizing Mental Health Awareness Month.
I'm sorry, President Van Allen. I missed who the motion was from.
Phil Setti and second by Nichols.
Thank you. Trustee Filicetti,
Aye.
trustee Nichols,
Yes,
trustee Roth,
Yes.
President Van Allen.
Motion carries unanimously of all present. This next one is a tough one.
Yeah.
Trustees, you'll recall that we have a bylaw provision for if a member misses a meeting but is properly excused, that they are able to request the board to approve that they would get their monthly pay for board service. And Trustee Filicetti did miss a meeting and has made that request. And so this resolution is before us today to approve providing that. And I assume you can vote on this. Yeah. So unless there's questions or comments about this.
So I'll just make the comment. I was in the hospital and I asked my husband to bring my laptop and the stuff I'd printed out to the hospital, and I was going to zoom in, and he said, "No, you're not."
Good for him.
He said, "Honey, just put it aside. You're not going to the meetings."
being in the hospital is a pretty good example of how you should be.
So I tried. I just want you to know I tried, but it wasn't happening.
I think you fit the requirements here. Okay, can I get a motion, please?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Roth,
I'll second.
second by Nichols. Resolution 23-17, board compensation for a missed meeting for Trustee Filicetti. And that was the March meeting?
March meeting.
March meeting, yeah. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Filicetti,
Aye.
trustee Nichols,
Yes,
trustee Roth,
Yes.
President Van Allen.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously with all present. So the superintendent's report's been sent to us. Ferris, do you want to add anything? Oh, here it is.
Yeah, actually, it's a more robust report this time than again. This is kind of a new thing to put all of the information related, to things that I'd like to keep you up to date on here in this presentation. I did want to start with just the heartbreak we experienced with the loss of our student earlier this week. And the student has been identified, this is a ninth grader who is going to Sequoia High School, who was shot, and another student, another young person, minor, has been arrested and is at juvenile hall as under suspicion for committing this crime. And so just a reminder about the power, the devastating power of gun violence to take the life of a young man and destroy the life of another. And all the people that surround those people are deeply, deeply impacted, including the teachers and staff and family members and everybody else. And so we activated our school emergency response team, provided support at Sequoia, as well as worked with PVPSA to provide support at the PVUSD schools where the student had attended before coming to us. And today, unfortunately, I wasn't able to participate. Chief Zamora from Watsonville PD had a meeting to discuss gun violence and just continue to brainstorm ways that we can provide support and prevention measures to try to minimize the likelihood of this happening again. Starting with a somber note, I'd like to go to the next slide and share with you that we recently received a report for county health rankings. There's a website where you can go and check out trends at every county in California for the last 10 years. And it's compared to county, state, and national levels. One of the main findings is Santa Cruz County is among the healthiest counties in the state, and we still have communities with inequitable opportunities and health outcomes. So I'm going to give you a brief summary just because it's a little bit outside of our scope of as an educational institution, but with the social determinants of health and well-being, we know that these issues like housing and healthcare have such a deep multi-generational impact on the success of our students and their well-being. Let's go to the next slide. A couple of summaries I want to tease out right away is that we're doing well overall. Most of this information is about adults, not students, including a mental health index that is not quite a response to Trustee Felicetti's request because it's about adults, but interesting nonetheless. And there are inequitable distributions of several health indicators and an increase in sexually transmitted infections here in Santa Cruz County. Let's go to the next slide. So this presentation, I want to give credit to Dr. Newell, who is our county health officer. She's retiring at the end of this school year. And so she'll be leaving us very soon, and we wish her well. But all this, the content is really a simplification, if you will, of a presentation she recently provided to doctors online. Next slide. So most of these, this information shares uses this color coding system of Santa Cruz County. And almost all of them, the dark green is good and the blue, the dark blue is not good. And so this is a general health performance index that basically shows how healthy people are in general. And as we said, if you look at all of Santa Cruz County, we're really strong. But I wanted to point out where the families are localized in the southern part of our county and right in the Watsonville area specifically, and in the Las Lomas areas, and that is the areas where we have those kind of an overrepresentation of students who have a lower score on the health index. Let's go to the next slide. Looking at this information, this is also another area that we actually no, this is trying to see what this is. Let's go to the next slide because I think that's just a closer look at there. So this is housing. This is how doubled up people are at. And you'll have a copy of this so you can look at the detail of this, and I'll give you, but the areas where we have the biggest impact, or we see a lot of dark blue, again in the Watsonville area, is low income renter source housing cost burden. In other words, how much of a person's employment is being dedicated to covering the cost of housing through rentals. But also when we think about the overcrowded housing, we also have high numbers there. So this is not new to you, but it's interesting if you look at this distribution of where the areas are where we have higher numbers and lower numbers. Next slide. Looking at adults without health insurance, you can see that mostly it's again in the southern part of our county. And mostly we would say that this is folks who are adults who don't have their papers. And so we see a significant portion of folks. And the dark blue is where you could see that it's between 25 and 35% of those adults not having health insurance. Next slide. And then looking at adults who've said that they are experiencing distress or poor mental health for over 14 days, you'll notice that the area where that is most represented is again in the Beach Flats area, as well as in the southern part of our county, in the Watsonville area and in the Las Lomas areas. Next slide. Looking at some of the concern for our healthcare folks is an increase in the number of incidence rates of syphilis. You'll see that among females, males, and just countywide that there is a significant increase over the last 3 years in syphilis cases. Next slide. Looking at HIV and AIDS, you'll also see that the number of cases of people who have been diagnosed with HIV/AIDS in Santa Cruz County is continuing to increase as well. Next slide. And then when it comes to the death rates related to COVID-19, we are the fourth best county in the state when it comes to COVID-19. And you'll see the two arrows on the right side. One is California and the other one is the United States. And so this is a per capita count. And you can see that I think through all the efforts, the shared collective efforts, we were able to protect our community in a way that really saved a lot of lives. And this is one of the positive things that came out of this report as well. All right, and just some local updates for COVID-19. Wanted to share with you that we're continuing to make antigen testing available for families. We will continue to require testing for staff and students if they show symptoms with antigen tests. We're going to continue to require testing for students and staff to return to school after 5 days. These two bullets here are more restrictive than the guidance, but we are continuing to ask for testing. The state is really relaxing the testing requirement. But at the same time, we're not requiring proof. And so somebody could lie and say that they did test and it was negative, but we are asking everybody to do that. We wanted to share with you that an important change has impacted families' qualification for Medi-Cal and that it expired at the end of March, meaning that a lot of families that had Medi-Cal are currently not covered by Medi-Cal and that they need to renew. Many of them are receiving renewal notices or received them already in the mail, but we're trying to conduct a campaign to get the word out to qualify for Medi-Cal. But we are also understanding that it's gotten harder to qualify for Medi-Cal, meaning that families that may have been covered and had insurance over the pandemic are no longer going to be covered under Medi-Cal. And it is important to also note that all minors in Santa Cruz County are guaranteed to have insurance, whether through Medi-Cal or whether through the Healthy Kids programs, which is for undocumented youth, or through their insurance provider that through their parents' work. And so there is no reason why a minor in Santa Cruz would not have health insurance. With the end of the public health emergency on May 11th, the national emergency was ended last week with President Biden's signature. We are anticipating that insurance providers are no longer required to cover the cost of testing. The schools will be messaging, have been messaging, and we sent out a letter to let people know you need to check with your insurance provider because you may not qualify for your insurance provider may ask you to pay for the cost of testing. And so that's why we're promoting antigen testing for everybody. And next slide. Just a short update on fentanyl. It continues to be a problem. One of the areas that I think I skipped over, but I thought I had included in our presentation was that opioid prescriptions is overrepresented in Santa Cruz County in the SLV area, which I thought was really interesting. And so we do have overrepresentation of drug use in Santa Cruz County generally. And we do have incidents of fentanyl overdoses here in Santa Cruz County, similar to the trend we're seeing nationally. We've been partnering with SafeRx to increase awareness and to bring resources. And we are organizing a pop-up for Narcan distribution on this Saturday. We'd love it for you to join us. Just to drop by and check it out. It's going to be in the same place where Inspire is doing their testing in the Cabrillo parking lot, April 22nd from 12 to 4 p.m. So if you want to drop by and just check it out and see what we're up to, we're working with the SafeRx team, which is part of the HIP for Santa Cruz County, the Health Improvement Program. And that is it for I think, is there anything else after this one? I think that's it, right? Yeah, so let's go back one, and maybe you could just stop sharing so that trustees can ask me questions.
Trustees Rose.
I emailed it to you today, right before the meeting. I can resend. It's included in the board slides, the PowerPoint.
Other questions or comments of the superintendent?
Good report.
I guess not. Thank you. So let's move on to trustee reports. What did I do last time? I'll just say, I did some committee work looking at resolutions, and I'm doing some research on education around the county. I missed a meeting to report, but I'm still doing the research. And that's most of it for me.
Subcommittee meeting with the PCS and CS or the COE, doing research on the board handbook, agenda meeting, and SCUSPA. And I'll report on SCUSPA and the charter committee later.
Good. Sound good.
I also worked on the resolutions. I made sure that I was aware of the various parts of them, and I did spend time doing that, and I encouraged my committee to get back to me about which ones they might like to speak about in depth. But Ed's on the committee and he's not here, so that didn't really happen. But I've been going through some tough times, and I have nothing else to report. I'm just.
You look good. You look great.
Oh, well, that's a very nice thing to say. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
The interior, I know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know what I'm trying to do? Everybody says, take care of yourself. And I am trying to do that. I should go clean my house. I think cleaning my house would be a very productive thing to do.
I think
the hike is better. Yeah.
Just know that a bunch of us care about you, Sandra. So
Thank you. I'll try to take care of myself then. Yeah, and thanks to Nick and Bernice for preparing the resolutions for us to just look over and learn from.
Well, I was delighted to see when I read the minutes that Berenice had included the list that I'd given her for March. I didn't do a whole lot until today, when indeed we got an email from the CCBE president that AB 906 is still alive and well. And I sent a copy of our resolution to Don Addis. Did you send one to Gail or John
No.
Lamb? I think it's really important that we send them to the four legislators and encourage them. I mean, I encouraged them to follow them and to let us know if they had any questions. I thought it was really important for the CCBE one that they knew that our County Office of Education had passed a resolution. And then we just keep reaching out to them and asking them if there's anything they need and following the direction from the CCBE president that still, because it basically, I was going to report that it went to the Education Committee on February 23rd and nothing had happened. And I was quite concerned that it was gone to die where in a pile someplace. But to get the information that it's going to be reviewed again, what did she say? April 26th, so soon. So it's alive and well, and yay. That's my report.
and I want to second the encouragement to send messages to the legislators. Definitely helps to do it. I've been doing it. I've been in touch with some other boards around the state. People are getting behind it. So, okay, that's our trustee reports, ad hoc standing committee reports, and I know Sue has a couple.
Yes, and I'll be mindful of not talking too much, but a lot has gone on. With the help me, PCS, COE and the PCS charter meeting, but they reported that their lottery was held March 16th. and 100 people have accepted. 19% is being held for their preferences of free and reduced English as a second language and first to college. Their preferences are based on free and reduced, English as a second language, and first to college.
And was there,
parents.
and what was the percentage?
19.
19%. But there's no knowledge yet of who is going to show up or who has accepted. Their diversity coordinator has been, will be working with their students a lot this summer in partnering with community organizations. Student affinity groups are going strong. AVID and ELD are both doing extensive training this summer. They're doing a report on equity by design, hasn't come out yet. PBS will be introduced, and that's Ferris. PBS. PBIS. It's a form of behavior, something or other. Okay. I knew the letters, but okay. So anyway, that's being introduced this month.
Sorry, I was trying to unmute myself. Is this positive behavioral interventions and support? It's a system to create an environment that really encourages positive behavior, a sense of belonging, provides rewards for students who are engaging, and support systems for those who are not attending or not participating or not being successful with their behavior.
PCS is really diving deep. A lot of the things that we have stressed with them.
I can jump in, Ferris. We are fortunate to have Haley Newman, who is an outstanding PBIS trainer and someone who has the unique skill and experience of applying that in a secondary setting. And she's just an amazing facilitator working with their team. So that's just a quick, that's who's providing it at this point. But PBIS there's regional support and statewide support as well.
Thanks.
A lot of our schools or districts are involved in that. Let's see. What they brought up with us was housing and the need for teacher housing. And we're all in there trying. And they want the ability, and I think the county offices offered wherever they can access into equity-based programming or meetings. Say that again. Equity-based programming, they want to be part of it, PCS. And they have already participated in some, but they are asking for it. So I'm sensing they're really hearing what we're saying. They want it. Maria's doing a good job. Let's see. They're challenged to fill 11th and 12th grade slots. And where the students are leaving is basically between 8th and 9th grade. And let's see, they're finding it very challenging on fundraising. And I know that is a great deal of how they fund themselves is through fundraising. And I asked about the AP classes, and it is mandatory that they take 5 and they must pass them, and they do not start until the 10th grade. And so anyway, Did I miss anything?
I don't think I was in that meeting.
Okay, well. Of. It passed over us, and they're still saying that they're still coming up with this idea of the double jump between 5th grade to middle school as being problematic. And what I see is that our 4 smalls, they go to 6th grade. So it's kind of, and those are probably more of the schools that they do get enrollment from are the smalls. So anyway, it remains a problem. And she said, Maria said, we would know when they're going to come forth with a 6th grade request. I think they're still working. So, or they are.
It made sense to them.
Gaspa?
Great, yes.
A great meeting, and it was, our speaker was Chris Reef, who is the CSBA legislative analyst. And he gave us a great handout, which I'm going to be attaching to the minutes, and everybody will get those throughout the county of the latest on the governor's budget. I mean, of course, it's still in flux. There are 44 counties that have been affected this year by emergencies in the state of California. The Legislative Action Day, over 400 members participated, and the vast numbers like the virtual meetings. And people did speak up and say it was so much better than being up there for 4 days and having a 20-minute meeting. So it was effective, and I really liked the training that we received. It was very nice. Let's see. The question on of the reporting that's being required from all the districts, that's being brought up all the time. And what I'm seeing is kind of a connection between LCFF, which is starting to go downhill. It was created in 2013, and a lot of the legislators who participated in that are gone. And by 2025, maybe there will be 4 or 5 members left in the House on who. No, but who votes this in, and where does our budget come from? Not
Right.
well, what Chris Reef indicated is that we are slowly returning to categorical grants, and that something's going to happen. But anyway, all the districts in the county are certainly talking about it. They were very actively questioning him. And let's see, there's going to be extensive changing in leadership in the Senate and in the House. And then Feinstein with the state of, our Senate, US Senate. And Pro Tem has termed out. Questions which I asked was, we're basing a lot of program funding on free and reduced meals, and that's up in the air. As far as with COVID, we didn't have to fill out any of those applications. Now it's coming back. And is this the most equitable thing that can be done? Because in certain areas, and I speak for a place like Scotts Valley, the parents don't want to fill them out. They don't want to be identified, even though our school districts do an incredible job in that you don't know. Well, more importantly is we're basing program money based on these applications. And, like English as a second language, those students are tested within our school districts or in our classes. So it's probably a better number or a more valid number than this free and reduced meals. And let's see, Scotts Valley finally returned to in-person board meetings. And they've almost a 15% increase to their teachers. They continue doing their DEI work, which is very important. And there will be a Sky Park Multicultural Festival in May, Saturday, May 6th. And it was very well attended, but they're opening it up, whoever wants to come. Santa Cruz, I think I already mentioned that, declining enrollment, but they have established the 2030 study group or program, whatever. And so they're moving forward on that. And they continue with the mental health training there. SoCal is very proud of Mr. Broadhurst being identified as the SCCOE Administrator of the Year. They're very proud of that. Oh, I didn't write it down. Frank?
Craig.
So, and SoCal is continuing with their DEI training, and they are exploring housing for teachers. And Chris Reeve suggested looking at San Mateo County is doing I guess a good job on it. And I think it's in Santa Clara, Jefferson School District, Model School District. Anyway. And Bonnie Doon, I've kind of talked about a lot. Mountain, same. They are struggling with their free and reduced program to meet the qualifications for it, and having trouble with their LCAP. And Roger Snyder is the CSBA Regional Director. Mark Becker represents North County on CSBA, and Kim DeSherpa has been appointed to South County. And that's it.
Great. Thank you.
I just want to say, I know I was part of forming this SCSBA, but I really like the interaction between the county, the COE, and the districts, all of us talking and hearing the problems, and also learning and kind of helping direct how we go at it with legislatures, with state and federal government. So anyway, there's a value to it.
Good. Okay. Any other ad hoc committee reports? I don't think we had anything else. So I'll remind trustees of our coming regular meeting on May 18th. We have our special meeting, the board self-evaluation on the 20th. The Black graduation this year is May 20th. And we have some other graduations, May 22nd to May 26th.
It will be held at Loud and Nelson.
It's at 3. And what Ferris told me is that we'll do our thing, and then people that want to be at Black grad will hustle over there. The timing should work. It's at 3, starts at 3. Okay, I think that completes our meeting. Unless there's something else on the next page. Some of those are here in the agenda.
We have the week scheduled, but I don't have the schedule yet of where they're located and the times. But it will, but it will be the week of May 22nd. Mhm.
All right, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.
Have fun.
Thanks, everybody. Great meeting.
Thank you,
Can't
Ferris.
wait for you to return to Santa Cruz.
I'll be back tomorrow night.
All right, good. Thanks.